What's up, people? The president of France, Emmanuel Macron, has warned Niger that it will answer to him if it attacks his country's people and interests. I'm Chibuzo Wanchuku. I would appreciate you liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Niger is a country in the west of Africa which gained its independence from France like 63 years ago. Now, in the last week of July, it had a coup which ousted its democratically elected president, Mohamed Bazoum, and replaced him with interim president Abdurrahman Tishani. Bazoum was detained by his own guard as part of the coup. The event occurred because the Nigerians, the people of Niger, were not happy with the elected president who served for like 2 years. Now they want the French people out of the country. They are seriously mad at France. They had a demonstration during which they held Russian flags and signs with words against France, NATO, the West, and so on. They also destroyed the embassy of France. Macron warned them that if they attack his country's diplomats, military personnel, other people, and interests, they will be struck back. Before I continue, I'll roll the clips.
Where would the coup leaders in Niger possibly get the idea that France had any interest whatsoever in intervening in its former colony? Well, it might have something to do with the statement that was put out by the French presidential palace, the Élysée, on Sunday that read, quote, "Anyone attacking French nationals, the army, diplomats and interests would see France respond immediately and intractably." And by French nationals, they mostly just mean one guy named Mr. Uranium, because Niger is France's top supplier of it, providing 15% of its total supply and a fifth of the European Union's. And the mineral is absolutely critical to power France's nuclear reactors. You see, France's energy independence is ironically very dependent on Niger, which would explain why French President Emmanuel Macron sounded awfully angry about something happening a whole continent away.
Anyone attacking French nationals, the army, diplomats, and rights of way would see France respond immediately and intractably. The President of the Republic will not tolerate any attack against France and its interests.
Yeah, those French interests would certainly include uranium. And now we've been hearing multiple Western press reports that the military junta, now in charge, has cut off exports of both uranium and gold to France, and that comes as really bad timing for Paris, which has become even more reliant on its nuclear power plants after cutting itself off from Russian gas with the rest of the EU to impress Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, in kind of the same way that college party guys work themselves into a frenzy and do dumb things like jump off a roof to impress girls. Germany is already on the verge of deindustrializing because Europe's economic engine can't run on wind and sun. Who knew? Apparently not Berlin. But at least France had not completely bought into Berlin's green fantasies and mothballed all their nuclear power plants, although Macron was certainly heading in that direction. So plan B after the Russian gas cut off was to power them back up. But now Niger has suspended the export of the uranium that they require with the immediate effect. But hey, no problem though, right? Because France has other suppliers like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, except who largely controls the transport of those to Europe? Russia's nuclear giant Rosatom.
Attacking the people of France is one thing, but what is Macron talking about when he says the interests of France? He's talking about the nuclear power in France, which needs uranium. Before the coup, Niger was supplying uranium to France. After the coup, France and the Western countries that were supplying aid to Niger stopped doing so. Now Niger stopped supplying gold and uranium to France, which has angered Macron. If France needs uranium, what has that got to do with Niger? Why not try like a non-African nation? It's imperialism. Despite the fact that the colonial era ended a long time ago, the West still takes control of African countries, taking advantage of them. They exploit African countries using various tactics, such as having leaders killed, causing wars, socially separating African countries, like causing hate, and so on. Some African countries have woken up and now they don't deal with the West anymore. Instead, they deal with countries like Russia, China, and Iran. Some countries recently turned away from the West, such as Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. Like Niger, they ousted their elected presidents by coups and are currently under military juntas. Some countries are still letting the West control them. This is what happens when an African country is still being controlled by the West. The president of that country takes money from Western countries, apparently to destabilize his or her own people. Most of the money goes to the administration. A small percentage goes to the rest of the country, leaving the people to suffer. Also, there tends to be terrorism in the country. The West is all for terrorism in Africa. Why? To make it easier to exploit the resources. Those are problems that Niger had, which led to the coup. Bazoum was serving the West instead of his own people, which was his job. Niger has yet another problem in their region. I'm talking about ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, which is supposed to take care of the economies of the West African countries. The organization instead is pro-Western. It aids the West in the exploitation. The head is Bola Tinubu, who is also the president of Nigeria. Of course, one of the countries that is still being exploited. Tinubu had his country cut electricity supply to Niger in response to the coup. The countries that are still being exploited need to get rid of their leaders. They also need to do away with the West and start dealing with either countries of their own continent or countries outside of Africa, outside the West. Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world. And the other African countries, despite their resources, are poor. This is because of that exploitation. The African countries also need to have strong security. That coup was a start for Niger. However, it needs strong security to make sure that they don't get attacked by their own. It is possible for the West to pay some people to overthrow the junta. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.